We have been hearing about Crimson Desert for many years now. Years of incredible trailers that left people completely speechless. Years of unanswered questions regarding what type of game it truly was. Years of hype building up, accumulating to a point where it was almost impossible for any game to truly live up to expectations. And now that it's here, that I've played it, spent hours in that world, the question everyone wants me to answer is simple. Is it worth it? And the answer is complex, not because the game is mediocre, but because Crimson Desert is the kind of experience that will clearly divide people. And what I'm going to tell you today will help you know exactly which side of that division you'll fall on. Crimson Desert is an open-world medieval fantasy, developed by Pearl Abyss, the Korean studio behind Black Desert Online. And from the very first moment, it makes it clear that this is not a game that wants to be just one thing. There are influences from The Witcher, Skyrim, Tears of the Kingdom, even a bit of Monster Hunter. And yet, it manages to feel like something entirely its own, like something you haven't quite experienced before in this exact way. And sometimes, both of those things simultaneously. You play as Cliff, a warrior of the Greymanes, one of the many factions inhabiting this world. After being killed by a rival faction, a supernatural force brings you back to life with powers you didn't possess before. And from there, everything begins. The first few hours of gameplay ask you to regain control, to reunite with your people, to build a camp, and to understand the world you are in. It is a long introduction. I will be direct because I think it's the most useful thing I can do. The first 8 hours of Crimson Desert, they are not good. They are terrible, but they are not going to hook you. And if you didn't know it beforehand, there's a real chance you'll quit before the game becomes what it really is. And that would be a shame, because what comes next is worth the wait. The problem is not that the game has a lot to teach you, but the way it teaches you. It's boring. The systems and mechanics gradually unlock, and in the meantime, the missions available to you are generic and lack much narrative motivation to complete them. There are moments that feel quite disconnected, as if some content had been cut at some point during its development, as if certain things were only there to slow you down before the actual game truly begins. The story in these initial hours doesn't give you enough reasons to care about what's happening. And Cliff as a character takes time to earn your interest. Those who play JRPGs will recognize this pattern immediately. There are games that need time to open up, and Crimson Desert is exactly one of them. The difference is that when this game opens, it really opens. And what appears on the other side of those initial hours is a completely different game from the one you were playing. More rich, more expressive, more generous with what it allows you to do. Suddenly, you have expressive and varied combat. You can switch to other characters with their own unique playstyles, much like in GTA 5. There's base building, fishing, mining, bounty hunting, mounts, robots, jetpacks, dragons that you can ride, and increasingly rare and larger enemies. The developers literally threw everything they could think of into this game. And what surprised me most is that the majority of these systems are well implemented. They don't feel like fillers or excuses to artificially add hours. They feel like things someone designed with care and enthusiasm. Cutting down a tree feels good. Setting a table in your house feels good. Stopping an enemy suddenly feels good. The horse controls feel good. There's something about how this game builds its systems from a simple base, adding complexity on top, which makes it very rewarding to master. And that feeling of discovering what you can do is one of the best aspects of the game. But if there's one thing that holds everything together, it's the combat. And the combat of Crimson Desert is very good, more than I expected, honestly. It starts in a simple way. You have block, stop, light attack, and heavy attack. And very soon you unlock a kind of force push that expands into something more. It seems simple at first, but the movement system grows a lot with magical abilities and a skill tree that has quite a bit of depth and variety in everything you can unlock. And the way all this unfolds as you play, it is one of the strongest aspects of the design. Even though it's a very hack-and-slash game, the number of combos and abilities you can chain together and the variety of effects you can stack on top of each other give you a level of expressiveness you didn't expect. The strike of a sword, a perfectly executed parry, all of that feels good physically. It has weight, it has impact. And when Cliff plunges his sword into an enemy, he yanks it out with a sudden flash of violence, and the enemy is sent flying. It's satisfying in a way that never gets boring over time, because the system keeps growing and offering you new things. The game is very good at making you feel quite powerful, while it keeps your feet on the ground, because the enemies still pose a real threat, even when you have many abilities unlocked. The game constantly throws waves of enemies at you and lets you go all out with what you have. And if you want to approach more tactically with a bow and arrow or stealthily first to reduce numbers, that option also exists. Although stealth is the weakest part of the combat system, what does work is that when you crouch, the map shows the enemy's cones of vision, which is useful. Personally, I would prefer to slim down the group first and then go into open combat with all my strength. As you progress, you unlock things like being able to throw enemies into the air. You can do choke slams, massive magical abilities like a ground slam, and effects that you can stack on top of each other to create situations the game never explicitly told you could create. That's the best thing about the system: experimentation. The game doesn't tell you everything you can do, it allows you to discover it. And when you discover it, it truly feels like your own, like something you personally found and not something they taught you in a tutorial. And Cliff is not the only playable character. You can switch to other characters, each possessing their own well-designed movement style, and none ever feel like an unimportant extra. You won't spend as much time with them as you do with Cliff, but when you use them, they feel like real characters with their own systems, not just filler. Cliff's movement outside of combat is also very good, and that matters more than it seems in a game of this size. You have a stamina bar that you can improve with the skill tree, and Cliff can upgrade to do things like shoot you forward like a rocket. All of that depends on your stamina, so the more you improve it, the more freedom you have to move around the world. The horse is another strong point. Not only can you fight on top of it, but it also has a drift mechanism. Can be improved. It can be equipped with different loot. It feels like they really thought of it as its own system and not just a means of transportation. And in a world of this size, that makes a big difference in how it feels to explore. In general, the loot system feels substantial and well thought out. You visit many merchants around the world. There is a huge amount of different resources with various uses. Equipping Cliff with various pieces of gear feels significant because there is a real difference in how you play with better equipment. If you find a sword that you like, you can keep it with you for a long time because you can progressively upgrade it at a blacksmith's workshop. That feeling of investing in a weapon instead of just swapping it for the next one you find is something some players are going to really appreciate. You have a head, cape, armor, gauntlets, and feet. And you can also dye parts of all this gear to customize your character's appearance in a way that it's not the most in-depth customization system out there. But it's enough for you to care about how Cliff looks while you play. Where the loot system has problems is in the inventory and the interface. The on-screen organization is more chaotic than it should be. There are questionable design decisions in how everything is structured, and in the early hours, limited storage will frustrate you quite a bit, because you'll constantly have to make decisions about what to keep and what to let go before you gain access to more space. That gets better with time, but the initial impression isn't great, and it could be one of the first points of friction you'll face if you're meticulous with your inventory. The missions also feature an interesting system that provides you with genuine reasons to undertake side quests, going beyond just direct loot. Many areas have contribution shops that operate with their own separate currency, which you earn by completing missions for the citizens of that area, meaning that the strange character by the side of the road with a problem is worth helping because it gives you contribution points with which you can get special loot that you wouldn't otherwise obtain. It's a well-designed loop that makes you want to explore and talk to the people of the world instead of ignoring everything that isn't the main mission. And in a world of this size, that kind of incentive makes a significant difference in how you interact with your surroundings. The world is truly enormous. It's one of the largest open worlds I've encountered in a very long time. And what impressed me the most wasn't just its sheer size, but rather its incredible density. There are many biomes, numerous sub-biomes nestled within those biomes, all boasting a level of detail that at times it's genuinely hard to believe is running in real time. The draw distance is incredibly impressive. You can see details from very far away with a clarity I've never experienced before in this type of game. And there is something in the way it feels to walk through this world that keeps you within it, in a manner hard to explain, yet very real. I say this as someone who has been tired of open worlds for years. There are too many, they're too big, and sometimes quite ridiculous in their claims. They come out every year promising living worlds, delivering pretty maps, but empty inside. But Crimson Desert surprised me by how it kept pulling me from place to place, always finding something strange and interesting around the next bend, always wanting to see what lay beyond the next horizon. Part of that is the visuals, because the game looks incredible. And on that note, the Black Space Engine, Pearl Abyss's proprietary engine, is evident in every detail of lighting and environmental physics. But there's also something about the world design that works on a deeper level than just its looks. There are secrets that the game doesn't announce to you. There are areas you can find completely by accident. There are missions that you discover without anyone pointing them out on the map, and that creates a feeling of genuine discovery. Many open worlds promise a lot, but few actually deliver. But we need to talk about what isn't working, because there are things that definitely don't work properly, and these will affect your experience, depending on how tolerant you are of these particular things. The everyday controls can be clunky at moments when they really shouldn't be. Picking up small items from the floor is more tedious than it really ought to be, and sometimes you'll press the button to pick something up, but instead, you'll just jump because it's the very same button. It seems like a small, minuscule detail, but when that crap happens 10 times in a single hour, your patience starts to completely run out. The camera was the most persistent issue I had with the game. It has a mind of its own and doesn't always agree with what you want to see. It shows more of the world in front of and above the character, rather than the character itself. It inexplicably zooms in at certain moments, and although there's a button to change between different viewing distances, none of those options felt completely comfortable for me. The issue is that the camera doesn't only act up in peaceful moments, it also does so during combat, when you already have plenty of other things to focus on. There is a lock-on button, but sometimes that lock-on feature also works against you, because it locks the camera in the wrong spot, at the most inconvenient time. This is the one aspect of the game that consistently pulled me out of the overall experience. And then there were the puzzles. Some designs are quite good and feel like an organic part of the overall design, but for every single puzzle that I encountered and truly enjoyed, I came across 3 others where I felt they were just plain silly or simply didn't make any sense within the game's own logic. The problem is amplified because the game doesn't hold your hand to solve them, which can be good in other aspects of the design. But with puzzles, it becomes frustrating when the issue isn't that you didn't find the solution, but that the solution seems poorly conceived from the very beginning. You'll probably find yourself needing to look up guides for some of them. And that's truly something that shouldn't be happening with puzzles in a game of this particular scale and ambition. And here is the single biggest problem that Crimson Desert has for me, and that is that the story and its characters just don't emotionally engage, at least not within the first few hours I've spent playing the game. The voice acting is quite solid. The world has interesting lore that you can discover if you delve into the texts and environmental details. But Cliff, as a character, and several of the secondary characters never made me care about what was really happening. I found it difficult to connect with them. I'm someone who deeply values the narrative in video games, who enjoys games with well-crafted lore, with characters you can truly fall in love with NPCs you remember weeks after you've finished the game. And I truly wish Crimson Desert had given me more reasons to emotionally connect with what's happening in its story. There are moments where the narrative has real potential, where something interesting comes to light in the world's background or a character's motivations. And in those moments, I wondered what this game would have been like with stronger character writing. The answer, possibly, is that it would have been one of the best games in recent years. Without that solid emotional foundation, what you have is a very detailed world where you feel physically present, but without an anchor to make you care about what happens to the people within it. That difference between being in a world and being connected to it is enormous, and Crimson Desert doesn't quite manage to cross it. What it does manage to keep you hooked on is everything else. The gameplay, exploration, the loop of getting better loot, going further, discovering more strange things, that works really well and largely makes up for it. But if you're someone who needs a story that grabs you emotionally to keep investing hours, this game can be a serious challenge. So, is the hype truly worth it? It depends on what you're looking for and your tolerance for strange or imperfect things in video games. And that's not an evasive answer, but it is the honest one. If you can withstand those initial slow 8 hours where the game hasn't quite revealed what it truly is, if you don't need a game to hold your hand and prefer to discover things entirely on your own, if you enjoy exploring a truly enormous world without being told exactly where to go or what to do, if you value a combat system that grows and becomes more expressive over time, if you're thrilled by a game that packed in absolutely everything it could conceive, and most of it works well, if you have patience with a camera that sometimes has its own ideas about what it should show you. So, Crimson Desert is a unique experience you won't find every day, and it's completely worth your time. Do you need a story that hooks you from the first moment and keeps you emotionally invested in the characters? If a difficult-to-handle camera during combat takes you irretrievably out of the game? If poorly designed puzzles frustrate you without remedy? And if you don't have the patience for a game to open during its first 8 hours before showing what it really is, then you're going to have a hard time with this, and it's better that you know it before investing the money. This is not a game for everyone, and Pearl Abyss clearly did not design it to be. It is an ambitious game, sometimes clunky, sometimes strange, sometimes absurd in its decisions, but made with genuine passion and with an amount of content that is honestly impressive for a studio that had never made anything of this scale. There are things that clearly failed in execution. There are design decisions that are not well understood. There are systems that deserved more polish than they received. But there are also elements that function in a way few games manage, especially concerning the feeling of exploring a world that truly feels alive and the gameplay loop that constantly keeps you searching for the next thing. Pearl Abyss built something that feels like a real achievement. It's evident in every well-polished system, in every world detail, in every design choice that prioritized discovery over explanation. It's not Game of the Year, it's not perfect, but it is memorable. At this moment in the industry where so many big games are forgotten 2 weeks after release, that's already enough.